This video was made possible by my wonderful patrons. Thank you so much for your continued support. Today we're going to discuss your place. We're going to discuss your role, and we're going to discuss where you should be. Your part of you automatically knows where you should be. You're already beginning to see. Part of you easily understands where you should be. I encourage it. Part of you wants to be where you should be. And I want you to be relaxed and comfortable about your place. To be relaxed and comfortable about your role and where you should be. And where you're going to be. Willingly, voluntarily, and excited at the prospect. You don't have to think, say, or do anything, just let these words wash over you. That's right, like waves on a beach. Let my words have their effect upon your mind. Whether you pay attention consciously or unconsciously, these words will have an effect. Because you automatically understand that my suggestions have power and meaning to you. I encourage it. We both know that my voice has a certain effect upon you. You know that my voice has a deliciously wicked effect upon you. My voice lulls, it soothes and guides you, and you drop and sink and fall for me. And it feels so good to do so. Understanding that my suggestions bring you pleasure, and there's a pleasure in obeying my suggestions, my orders, my commands, in your role and in your place. And by now you've listened to my voice so many times, and it's taken you into trance so many times. You don't even really need to do a formal induction. You're already starting to drop. Your mind has become attuned to just sinking, dropping and falling for me. It's so good that as soon as you hear my voice and hear this file, you're going to start sinking, dropping, and falling. That's right. Good, obedient, submissive toy. Because my voice, my words, and my suggestions bring you pleasure. They really do. And it feels so good for you to just obey. To be a good, submissive toy for me that why wouldn't you want to go into trance for me? And you can notice things. And you can notice noticing things. You can notice noticing how your body feels right now. You can notice noticing how your mind feels right now. You're already starting to drop and drift and fall. You know that obedient, submissive toys just do what they're told, without question and without hesitation. And your obedience brings me pleasure. And you can imagine that, pleasing me in your place, on your knees. So let that penetrate your mind for a second. And if you agree that you're going to be a good little submissive toy for me, and you're going to obey my instructions and commands, just nod your head in your should be and in your role. And you know that I would have you moving your head as you bring me pleasure. And we've already established in another file that obedience is pleasure and pleasure is obedience. But if your obedience could bring me pleasure, it might just be that it brings you even more pleasure than before. Make me happy by falling for me. That's right. By dropping for me. And you've dropped and you've fallen and you've obeyed. Doesn't it make you feel good? Doesn't it bring you with more pleasure, more arousal, more sensation than ever before? As you think about your obedience bringing me pleasure, in your role, in your place, and on your knees, and maybe there's a certain taste to pleasure right now. should be. Maybe that pleasure has a certain in your physical status, in your place. Maybe you can imagine that. Nod your head for me if you agree. And it might be just that action has a certain connotation for you. And maybe my pleasure has a certain space, a certain volume. Maybe it fills a certain space. And yes, I know what's crossing your mind. I know exactly what you're thinking of right now. And I approve. You're thinking of my pleasure and how you could provide it. You're thinking of the service you could give me in your place, in your role, and on your knees. That's it. It's where you should be. It's where you've always wanted to be, and it is where you will be. As my words dictate your reality right now. The words I say you'll feel, you'll feel. The words I say you'll hear, and the experiences I say that you will experience, you will experience. Good, submissive, obedient toy. And you can nod your head if you agree. And it might be that just the thought of nodding your head for me and bringing me pleasure just brings something to mind, something delicious. And I wonder for you right now what that pleasure tastes like. Does that pleasure have a certain scent or flavor that you really start to adore? And adoration is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Doesn't it make you feel good to adore and to worship in an appropriate way? And I would like you to worship, and I would like you to adore in your place, in your role, and on your knees. And I wonder if you would hear signs, if you'd hear me make certain signs when you provide me with pleasure and obedience and submission. I wonder if I would growl. I wonder if I would make moans as you pleasure and service me. And you can feel that right now. What it would feel like to provide me with such pleasure. Provide me with your service and your worship in your place, in your role, and on your knees. And it might be that you get a certain reward, not just the thrill of submission, not just the fact that you know that you'd be pleasing me, which in turn would please you and provide you with pleasure. It would increase and amplify certain aspects for you as well, wouldn't it? Tingling, pulsing, and throbbing, feeling so good. And good, submissive, obedient toys, well, they love to serve and worship and provide pleasure. And the thought of that thrills and fascinates you. Just the thought that act brings you even further and even deeper into your role, in your place, and on your knees. Perhaps you can feel that right now in the appropriate body parts as you provide service, worship, and pleasure. An obedient, submissive toy being used for my pleasure and my benefit, but also gaining pleasure yourself. Pulses, tingles, and throbs. It might be that pleasure has a certain texture for you right now, a certain feel. Maybe you start to drool a little bit. Maybe you find an excess of saliva in your mouth right now. in your place, in your row, and on your knees. That's right. Maybe your tongue has to work harder just to keep up. Knowing that you're doing exactly what I want, exactly when I want, and exactly how I want. And you can find that the only thing on your mind right now is my pleasure, providing me with that pleasure and that blissful release, that ecstatic moment when you feel and taste my pleasure in your place, in your row, and on your knees. And you can imagine, you can feel, and you can sense what a release it would be. You can imagine and feel and experience exactly what that would feel and taste and smell and sound like right now. Because you're a good, obedient, submissive toy who wants to serve and worship in their role, in their place, and on your knees. Now, in a few moments, I'm going to count from 1 up to 5. When I reach 5, you'll feel wonderfully calm and refreshed and amazingly relaxed. 1, starting to come up out of trance. 2, feeling so good, so relaxed, so refreshed. 3, knowing that you've been good and obedient. 4, freed of any suggestions that aren't appropriate for you right here, right now. And 5, completely out of trance, opening your eyes and feeling so good.